And just for a brief introduction, and he'll tell you more about himself when he speaks, but Jeff is a very successful business person in the for-profit sector, and sort of later in life got more interested in social enterprise and understanding how you can use business, and especially for-profit business, to have a social impact. So business for good, so to speak. And Jeff is the major founder and force behind Nika water, which many of you guys have probably seen at Harvard or like seen me running around with at different points in the past year or two. And Nika water is a really unique social enterprise that he'll also speak a bit more about. So I won't keep going on because I could talk about Jeff forever, but I just want to thank him for being here and for doing our last TED Talk of the morning.
Thank you. When I met Kara, she was a junior in high school at the time, and she helped us start Nika Water. And as she came to Harvard, she came as a poli-sci major wanting to go into government, and she's quickly transformed into a social entrepreneur. And I think that's what's great about social entrepreneurship is why can't you make money but also do good? And that's really what it's all about that I want to talk about today. So can these products and other products like these actually help save the world? Can a bottle of salad dressing, something as basic as that, bring laughter and joy to a child with a life-threatening disease? Can a bottle of water sold in the United States actually bring clean water to someone in Kenya? Can a pair of Tom's shoes purchased at Nordstrom's actually put shoes on someone's feet in South America? Can something as basic as a ream of paper, an office supply, actually help provide a family of 7 for meals? And the answer is yes, they can. And they're doing it through an incredible model called social entrepreneurship. And really, you heard Cheryl talk a little bit about it, but really it's, on the one hand, you've got for-profit businesses that mainly their focus is an economic return for their shareholders. And while lots of for-profit businesses do a ton of philanthropic work, mainly their focus is to create economic value for their shareholders. And on the other end of the spectrum, you've got nonprofits. They're really focused on their cause, but they're also really focused on having to raise money all the time. And sometimes they're not the best of business people. Then you've got governments that, as they give money to other governments, they really have a hard time holding them accountable to that. So somewhere in the middle of all that, you've got this hybrid model called social entrepreneurship, businesses that are giving back. It could be a for-profit business, like Newman's Own, which you saw earlier with the salad dressing. In their 25 years of existence, they've donated more than $300 million to their causes that support them. Or it could be a nonprofit business that sets up a for-profit wing to it, a for-profit entity. But really what it's all about is trying to reduce the reliance on check writing, because we tend to get donor fatigue. And I'll give you a little example of that. If I'm a local well driller in Kenya, and every year I'm depending on money from the United States from donors to help build wells to bring clean water to people, and every year that goes and it's working great, then all of a sudden Hurricane Katrina occurs, or the earthquake in Haiti occurs, or the recession occurs in the United States, and the donor capital really shrinks up. Well, that makes a lot of sense for the donors because you got to tighten your belt and you got to reallocate your funds. But for that well driller in Kenya, his project then stops, half started. And having traveled a lot in the developing world, you see a lot of projects that are half started. So what I want to talk to you about today is social entrepreneurship, and not only how it's going to really change society over the next generation, but how you can participate in it and not only make money if you want to make money at it, but you can also have a meaningful career. So who are these social entrepreneurs? Well, we all know Nelson Mandela, and we all know Mother Teresa, and we all know Gandhi, and they really are truly remarkable people. And they really have moved mountains, and they've done incredible, incredible things. But there's someone else in this room that also can be a social entrepreneur. And that person is you. See, I believe that ordinary people, just like you and I, can do extraordinary things. But it really comes down to that. And if we do extraordinary things, and there's a million of us, ordinary people, doing extraordinary things, we're not just going to move a mountain like a Gandhi or Mandela can do. We're going to change the world. We're really going to make a significant difference. And I want to give you an example of a good friend of mine. His name is Craig Kielburger. I don't know how many of you know Free the Children or Craig Kielburger. A few people. You're going to hear this afternoon one of his good friends talk on Free the Children. Anyway, when Craig was 12 years old, he was living in Toronto, flipping through the Sunday paper, and he was going to the comics, and he came across this article of a 12-year-old boy in Indonesia who was murdered while protesting against child labor. His name was Iqbal. And Craig was so taken by it, he said, "Mom, Dad, I got to go protest on Iqbal's behalf in Indonesia. And his parents said, well, Craig, kind of two problems. One, we're a middle-class family, we don't have any money. And two, you're only 12. And Craig said, well, I'm going to get the money, and I'm going to find an adult chaperone to go with me. And he did. He raised the money through bake sales and car washes, found an adult chaperone to go with him. As he got over to Indonesia, it just so happened that the Prime Minister of Canada was there. And he heard about this 12-year-old boy who was also there, and the two really connected. And the rest is kind of history. That was 17 years ago. Today, he's 29 years old. He has an organization that educates, it's about poverty alleviation today. They educate 50,000 people in the developing world every day. He's been nominated for 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. He's won the Nelson Mandela Award several times. He's just an ordinary person, just like you and I, that did an extraordinary thing. I believe that we're at the beginning of a really powerful wave. And unlike so many things that are on the horizon that seem to be negative or cloudy or overhangs, this is a really positive wave that over the next generation is really going to make a tremendous difference in our society. And it really has to do with 5 reasons. First, the youth. As Cheryl said, you guys, want to be part of something bigger than itself, but you also want to make a buck. And that's really where it begins. The internet. Internet didn't exist 25 years ago when I was coming out of school. But the internet brings these global issues 24/7 to our laptop. You can't turn a blind eye when this stuff's streaming right at you. And the third thing is also the internet. The internet provides us all, we all can be academic researchers at an incredible level from our couch. Last year I was researching a coffee product from Haiti with the idea of bringing it in, selling it in the United States, and donating the profits back to Haiti to help people in Haiti lift themselves out of poverty with dignity. And as I went through the research in a period of 3 or 4 days, I was able to get growing reports, I was able to talk to people on the ground, I was able to communicate with USAID, all from my couch, all with my laptop. The internet's changing everything in a positive way for that. The fourth thing is celebrities. Celebrities are increasingly using their platform to pontificate their causes. When Bono gets up and talks about AIDS and aid relief, millions and millions of people hear that, and millions of people get behind that. And the fifth thing is the baby boomers. As my generation retires, to the extent that they have capital, they're giving that capital back. You've heard about what Warren Buffett and Bill Gates have done probably with the high net worth families, where they've challenged them over the course of their lives to donate half of their net worth back to charity. There are up to 75 people that have agreed to do that. And when that capital comes back, not only is it billions and billions and billions of dollars, but these individuals hold these NGOs and charities accountable. And when they hold them accountable, the cream rises to the top, and you get the best of the best. You may ask, is it important? Well, over the last 50 years, as a global society, we've invested $600 billion into Africa, and yet the per capita GDP in most African countries is lower today than it was 50 years ago. This graph kind of tells you a little bit about that. The magenta line is the percentage of foreign aid that makes up African gross national income. And the blue line that's dropping is the per capita GDP. You can see that they're just inversely correlated. It does matter. So can we really solve society's biggest challenges with social entrepreneurship? I want to put it in perspective a little bit. It would cost $9 billion to bring clean water permanently to every human being on this planet. That sounds like a lot of money until you realize that we spend $20 billion a year on ice cream in the United States. It would cost $30 billion to put 3 meals on every human being's table every day. And we spend $10 billion, $12 billion a year on perfume. And that's not meant to make us feel guilty at all. I love ice cream more than anybody. I'm not so sure about perfume, but I love ice cream. But what it's meant to make us feel is that we can, if we think outside the box and we think creatively, and we open our paradigms to new approaches and new types of businesses, we can solve these society's biggest challenges. I had a transformative event about 3 years ago when I met Craig Kielburger, and he challenged me and my family to come to Africa, to come to Ethiopia and Kenya and spend the summer. And I have 4 kids that were in middle school and high school at the time. And my wife and I talked about it. We had a trip to Italy planned, a nice, high-end trip. And we decided, no, we're going to shelve that. We're going to go, and we're really going to understand what's going on in poverty and poverty alleviation. And when we got there, we really began to realize the difference in relative poverty and absolute poverty. Relative poverty being, I must be poor, I can't afford the latest iPhone. Absolute poverty being, I live on less than $1 a day, I walk 7 miles to get polluted water and I can't go to school. So as we began to understand this, we realized that 4,500 people die every single day from a lack of clean water. That's the size of one large public high school evaporating every single day. We learned that half of the hospital beds in the developing world are occupied by people with waterborne related diseases. We learned that in the developed world, we use about 100 gallons of water every day to wash, cook, clean, bathe. And in the developing world, we use 3 gallons of water a day to do all of that. Anybody else know what uses about 3 gallons of water? 1 flush of the toilet. So as we walked, it's my daughter, as we walked with the locals, we had these jerry cans, these 50-pound jerry cans we put on our back. As we were walking up the hill and doing the water walk, I had 2 daughters with me that were 13 and 15. And my 13-year-old said to me, "Daddy, did you know that this girl next to me was walking with me, can't go to school because she has to get the water all day?" And my 15-year-old daughter said, "Daddy, did you know that this girl over here is pregnant and she's 15 and she's not in school either?" And they looked up at me and they said, "Daddy, why can't we help these people? Why can't we solve this? You know, we have so much in the United States and these people have so little. Daddy, you're a business guy. Can't we do something about it?" Well, I didn't really know what to do, but so we, as we thought about it more and more, I thought, yeah, you know what? I mean, we should open our paradigms. We should think about it. So we began to think about an idea germinated in us. What if we could create a business that with just the profits, we could sustain bringing clean water to people around the world? So we created a company called Nika Water. And Nika means to give in Zulu. It's an eco-responsible bottled water company that donates 100% of its profits to bring clean water to people. And in the past 3 years, we've been able to bring clean water to 7,000 people. And we realized that it only costs $20 to bring clean water to someone for a lifetime. $20. I spent $15 on the other day at Starbucks on a drink I can't even pronounce. And so as we think about it at Nika, that's not a lot of money to do. And we get really excited about trying to do that. But what I get really excited about is when I see, what Newman's Own's doing, what Tom Shoes is doing, what somebody maybe on the other side of the planet is doing in their own right, what some of the people that Cheryl's working with are doing, what maybe some of you do as you go on your path. And all of a sudden, if we get these millions of people doing this, like I said, it's not going to just be moving a mountain like a Gandhi or a Mandela could do. It's going to be, we're going to change the world. And we're going to solve some of these most challenging issues that we haven't been able to solve. People often ask me, well, okay, how do you do this? How do I find my passion? How do I figure that out? And there's a bunch of different ways. The first is, sometimes we get hit with misfortunes. You won't know the name Nancy Goldman, but you'll know her sister and her story. When Nancy Goldman's sister was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1980, and she was on her deathbed, Nancy committed to her that she will work for the rest of her life to try to bring awareness to early detection on breast cancer. Her sister who died is Susan G. Komen. So sometimes you get these misfortunes in life that you want to turn them into positives. Hopefully that's not how you find your quest. Sometimes it's trial and error. Before my wife and I found water and poverty alleviation, we went around and we probably looked at 10 different things until we figured out what connected with the head and what connected with the heart. You can travel, you can volunteer, whatever your passion is, or whatever you think it might be, just instead of going to the beach one summer, spend a week and go, on an adventure, volunteer trip. Read and research. Like I said, there's no excuse. You can get whatever information you need, and you all know this, but you can get whatever information you need from the internet. There's no reason why you can't be, experts at this. But most importantly, get up, get off the couch, get moving, like Rebecca said earlier. So really, what I want to leave you with is 2 things. The first is that ordinary people, just like you and I, can do these extraordinary things. And don't think that just because you're not Warren Buffett or Nelson Mandela or Richard Branson or any of these people, you can't do it. You can do it. I bet you've got ideas right now to do it. The second thing I want to leave you with is you don't want to get caught flat-footed at 45 years old going, huh? What's it all about? Because you are going to ask yourself those questions. And you don't want to be sitting there saying, my job, I'm not really happy with my job. My kids are in expensive private school, so I'm stuck. My marriage is kind of, I'm not really sure. What's the meaning of life? You don't want to do that. So what I suggest is you start now. You don't have to go off and launch your own business now, but start it as your hobby. While you have your day job, percolate that hobby along. It could be for years, it could be for months, it could be for 20 years, but percolate that hobby along, really perfect it, understand it, and then when you're ready, you'll be ready to dive in and make it work. And I think you can do it through social entrepreneurship. Thank you very much.